You haven't switched over to oat milk yet?
I did it for quite a while.
I do like oat milk.
And I do like it okay, but I don't know. It kind of asserts itself a little too much. Oat milk is a little aggressive. In terms of the milk alternatives, I feel like it's a little too like in your face. Like it wants too much from you. Yeah, I just like the almond milk is so unassuming and polite. I just prefer that. I don't know. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the JRPG Pursuit Podcast, your JRPG podcast for all things JRPGs. I'm Branden.
I'm Abdallah.
And I'm Emily.
And today we have quite a show for you. Oh, we are fired up. We are bringing the energy because we are talking about something that irritates us to no end, and I'm sure irritates at least some of you. There's a good chance,
maybe,
if you are a fan of this genre. So we're excited to get into that. But before we do, some top of the show business. First of all, we wanted to thank all of our members who have already joined us in the Discord and who are enjoying the bonus videos. We really, really appreciate you all. Want to remind you that if you are interested in joining the Discord or in additional bonus content every week, you can join the membership program, and we would be thrilled to have you, and we're really grateful for your support. Second of all, I want to ask that you would consider leaving us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Even if you listen primarily on YouTube, if you could leave us a review on one of those platforms, it just really, that more than anything on those platforms, it helps extend the reach of the show. Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind leaving us a review there, that would be fantastic. I know Spotify makes you listen before you can review, but you only have to listen like 5 minutes, so you can just put it on in the background and, you know, whatever. But Apple Podcasts, I believe, does not have that requirement. So anyway, we really appreciate that. And also, if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. That just really helps us out a ton as well.
Make sure you don't miss an episode, too.
Yes, and then you'll always be ready for the next episode. We do them weekly, as you probably know by now. This is our 25th one.
25, man.
So we're trucking along.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, I think. So anyway, what are we talking about today, guys? Are we talking about tropes?
Yeah.
We're talking about tropes.
I think so.
Maybe anime tropes, may not be anime tropes, but ones that are very prevalent in JRPGs.
Yeah.
We've noticed at least over the years.
There's a fine line between both of them. So between JRPGs and anime.
They often do overlap.
Yep.
For better or for worse. So
big old Venn diagram there.
Yes. And how do we want to kick this off, you guys? I mean, I know we have some lists that we've drawn up. I think maybe
we should talk about the placement of tropes and when they really started appearing, I think, in JRPGs might be an interesting conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We already kind of alluded to the presence of tropes within anime. Being just a reality of the industry, and as JRPGs over time
Japanese culture, right?
Yeah, they became more and more reflective of anime because of its popularity, both in Japan and increasingly in the West. Those tropes just became sort of part of the storytelling.
Yeah, synonymous almost, right?
Yeah. Oftentimes I think the reason people get angry or frustrated about tropes is because they're kind of a crutch, right? There's sort of a storytelling shortcut. Like, we're going to make this scenario interesting and we don't even need to think of an original idea. We'll just use this trope because it's
familiar, right?
Yeah.
People gravitate towards familiarity.
For sure.
It's like
and if you make it too off the wall, it's like, do you always understand what's going on?
Yeah. Like a lot of publishers or developers want to keep, sometimes play it safe with a lot of different games, especially with the story, in terms of just like they know what people like and they see what's popular, let's say even in the anime like spectrum of things, and they kind of just implement those same ideas across these different games, and it just helps them keep selling to those specific demographic of people that like it. And so that's why we'll see a lot of crossover there, and then a lot of games that even till now will use these distinct tropes that we'll talk about probably.
It's the argument between, art as consumable product and art as art, right? Like, it's like, if you want to make a product that has mass consumability, then leaning on tropes is not a bad way to go because, like you said, Emily, it's familiar. People are drawn to familiarity. It's easy. It's an easy sell.
You know what you're getting into.
Exactly. But at a certain point in the past, each one of these tropes was a new thing, right?
Yeah.
It was a new idea. It was a revolutionary thing. Maybe with some exceptions from things that were borrowed from other media. But even then,
I
going
think
back.
literature, too. Like, we'll talk about a few of them. I'm sure we've seen in classic literature, and it's just a bit more exaggerated, maybe, as the token anime trope that we refer to it as now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in order for storytelling to move forward, at a certain point, it's a good idea for at least some developers, some creators to leave these tropes behind and create potential new tropes that that our children and our children's children will be frustrated by.
The creativity is so hard, I feel like. And so maybe not necessarily brand new ideas, which maybe is asking too much sometimes, but at least have their own creative spin. I think is all we really would like to see moving forward.
See. Because like they'll tend to like sprinkle in new ideas on top of these tropes. So that way there's like some baseline of like familiarity in this, like in the storyline and things like that. And you'll see that I'll probably bring up a few things as we go into like certain specific tropes. But yeah, I think that's key right there.
Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe we could get some of the, maybe the more obvious ones out of the way right up front. The first ones that came to mind for, I think at least maybe for all of us, were things like the silent protagonist or amnesia as the protagonist has amnesia, right? There are reasons for both of those tropes to exist. The silent protagonist was originally like, we want the player to embody the character, and by making him not talk, the player can embody the character. That was the idea.
Yeah,
like, what do you guys
one
think
less
about
voice
that?
actor to hire.
One less and less dialogue to write, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Simplify
Just a little easier. And I know we've gone into that.
We did do a whole episode on sound.
We did do a whole. So
check that out.
So yeah, please check that out, and then you'll know our true feelings on that specific topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to get that one out of the way, I think the amnesia trope, though, is one we've been seeing a whole bunch in modern and JRPGs that came out within the last 20 or so years.
Yeah.
I think maybe when I always think of the amnesic protag, I'm always kind of thinking about Rune Factory. They've done that time and time again with their protagonists.
Yeah.
What other ones do you guys always kind of think of when you hear of the amnesic JRPG trope?
The newest
Terra
one I can think of.
Oh,
Terra. Yeah.
Terra from Final Fantasy VI is the first one that comes to mind for me. But
There you go.
Yeah, that's a big one. And then even as recent as Fantasian uses that same trope. And like what I was thinking, when we were talking about like adding extra to the baseline of the trope is that you look at Xenogears. I mean, you have Faye who suffers from amnesia and doesn't know where he's from. But like taking that trope and then elaborating and making it something a whole lot more intricate is something that they, like, Takahashi did.
Making it downright Freudian, right?
Exactly. Like really going down to the layer of like your id and your and the different things that go into your personality. And so, like you can take that baseline of a trope and then you can just turn it into something much more profound, depending on who's doing the story beats and stuff like that.
I really like amnesic tropes where they don't just introduce the character, they have amnesia. And that is to kind of write off anything that they say, or that's why all these new concepts are being, piled onto them at the beginning of the story. I like it when they kind of discover that they have amnesia because they've always lived this sort of life a certain way, and they actually forgot, what their past was without realizing it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a much more clever use of the amnesic trope.
For sure. It's much too often used as a crutch for explaining things to the player.
Info dumping at the beginning of the game.
And if I haven't shared before on this podcast how much I hate the expositional info dump, I will say it now. I hate the expositional info dump.
I hate it in fantasy novels. I hate it just in any media.
It's terrible. Yeah.
A lot of media does that. You see that a lot in anime and other things like that. So like if you are doing like amnesiac like characters, working that into like the dialogue and the interactions and like learning that through the progression of like even the intro scenes and things like that. That's more of a creative, better way to deal with it rather than just
Final
being
Fantasy VII, I think, did a really stellar job of
that was
a very
incredible.
similar trope there.
Yeah.
Where you didn't even realize it in the beginning.
Right.
And I just like how it, comes to you by surprise. It's written in there. It's not as some sort of crutch later on to explain away something, but it's built in from the beginning as a foundation in a clever way.
And just to circle back real quick before we move on to the to the next item, the expositional info dump. I just want to put this out there to any developers, writers who might be listening. If you find yourself writing a character saying the line, "As you all know," and then proceeding to explain something, you are expositional info dumping. If everybody already knows this and the character is explicitly stating that, you are writing to the audience. Find another way to convey that information. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Yes, much more interesting ways, I think, to go about that.
I agree.
Certainly.
Yes.
Yep. Nothing else to give to that. That's perfect.
So yeah, that was the big one, Amnesia. And then we kind of breezed by Silent Protag because we had a whole episode on that. Which one do we want to maybe discuss next that we see often pop up in JRPGs? Dalla, did you have one?
Got one for us, Dalla?
Yeah. I feel like let's keep it simple to a lot of these different things that really also is integral to anime as well. And that is like the power of friendship.
Power of friendship.
To deal with all scenarios. So no matter what, no matter if you're dealing with like the most like intense like catastrophes across the world and all these different things, friendship always reigns true at the end of the day, and you can defeat anything, even if you are weaker by far.
Because friendship's so much stronger than anything else.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful thing in the world.
And I do it.
The sentiment's cute.
The sentiment's cute. It is. It's so cheesy for me. Like
it is. Yeah.
And
when I was
and
watching
Trails.
Yu-Gi-Oh, power of friendship is a huge theme there, and it was a little bit cheesy, but I was grinning like a fool throughout it.
100%.
So there's something that I think we just inherently love about this because we like the idea of the connections we make and the friends we have. It's going to make us better people. I think.
Yeah. And I think we love Trails. Everyone kind of knows that. And I feel like Trails is like the ultimate soapbox of that trope where, they'll introduce the idea of like, oh, friendship. But then they'll like make sure that everybody has like one liner to give that's like pushing this whole like agenda of it.
During the final confrontation with the villain, right? Everybody has to say a line. And when you get into Reverie, there's like 500 characters.
Yeah.
That takes a long time. If I'm the villain,
some ex-villains too. They chip in.
Yeah, the villains get into it.
Recruit everyone.
It's
that's
so
friends.
funny.
I'm just going to set off the bomb like while you're all talking because they just take so long.
It's so funny. The fact that the villains let them go through that whole, because they're pretty big groups, and like you said, by Reverie you're dealing with like 30 to 40 people, like just
the villains have got to be annoyed by it too, right? I mean, you're just
I don't know why they just stand there
rage.
patiently wait for them to end.
I feel like they're in on it.
Cries.
They're in on it.
Oh, maybe
they're in on it.
Maybe they find it charming too. Maybe
that's true. Maybe they have this big dumb grin on their face that we just don't see.
They're like, oh, they love each other. I think I'm going to let them win. win. I'm some kind of god that should not be beatable by a bunch of teenagers. I'm going to let them win because that's just too adorable. So maybe
that's how the power of friendship prevails.
That's how they do it. Yeah.
But let's be real. That actually ends up happening in a lot of Trails games. It
does.
Where they're just like, even if they are winning, they'll be like, you know what? You guys are cute, and I love you guys. You've tried your best, and therefore, I'll come back.
Peace out.
You'll have to deal with me again, but for now, you guys prevailed because friendship.
Yeah.
And I find that just to be the funniest thing. It's so cheesy. I mean, I love it, but it's also also
we don't always love to see it all the time. I think.
Like
at least I don't. It gets a little bit. It's such an easy way to write off something like why they can't overcome something. It's just because friendship allowed them to, or gave them some sort of crutch there. So,
and like realistically,
I find it a very lazy trope.
And like realistically, like in like if you were to compare it to like your own perception of reality, if you were stuck in a situation where you're up against like some sort of demon god or something like that, like, do you find like personally, would you find yourself being able to, like, let's say the three of us were up against that? Like, do you think our power of friendship would be able to defeat that, or would we just get slaughtered?
We'll get destroyed, decimated, incinerated, turned into ash.
We don't like each other enough. I think that's the problem. We just don't have
I think our power of friendship's probably, not powerful enough.
We're not powerful enough.
We need to level up our friendship, our connection. So we should have some, like, we should
figure
have
out
some.
what
Well, we do have an opportunity coming up that may do that. We'll talk about it at some point.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
That's
on a later episode.
To be announced. The power of friendship's great. Power friendship's great, like, until it's really useful and fun until you find out that all your friends are hanging out without you, and then it's like, oh, that power of friendship is not working out so well for me. So, I want to.
That's too real, right there.
I want to suggest that Reen is probably in that situation more than he even realizes. Because he's just kind of
like to gossip behind his back.
They gotta. I mean, all the girls are, because they all love him. They're all in love with him, which is.
Well, they got to hang out together so that no one has a one-on-one time with him.
Right. Yeah. They can't have that. Anyway, I don't want to bust on. I love Trails. I don't want to bust on it too much.
I love Trails.
Okay, so we've talked about Amnesia. We've talked about Silent Protags. We talked about the power of friendship. One that I wanted to mention is dead parents, and that's something that's. I don't know. This is not uniquely Japanese, right? Like, this is something that
Disney.
is very Disney.
The mother's always dead.
It's at least a dead mom, right? Often dead like they're both dead. And these characters tend to be young. So, like, this is a tragically young death for these parents. It's not like the main character's 60 and their parents are dead. And it's like, well, that's possible, right? That's likely. So the dead parent thing, what do we think that's about? What is the reason?
Well, they do that so that the kid could go off on some epic adventure and not have their parental constraints on them. Like, no, you can't go out past
holding them down.
Your bedtime or whatever.
Right.
And it creates a struggle, like an internal struggle that they have to go through to like deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like an easy, it's an easy trope to add on to have this person go from being a child to being this, like, special person who's overcome a lot of, hardship and hardships and things like that. So it's an easy way to kind of like throw some sort of like trigger that leads this person on a journey, that leads this person to overcome a lot of different things that they probably wouldn't have done if they had parents.
Right.
And also, like, because I think JRPGs, they focus so much on youth when it comes to their main protags, but their player base aren't always so young, right? And so when you have a young person, but maybe they act a bit more mature because of their early circumstances, they're a little bit more relatable to like an adult, player.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange. And let's just roll the super, because I had another one that was just like super young heroes. I feel like it's relevant to this, so maybe I can roll that trope into this, where the main character is always, Final Fantasy VII, Cloud was 21, and it was like, oh my gosh, this guy is
he's an old man.
He's so, like, we've never had a main character that old
Grandpa
before.
Cloud.
At that time,
At that time, certainly. I mean, you get into 16 and you finally have a character like Clive, who starts out young but ages up over the course of the game. And he's in his 30s by the time the game ends or whatever. So they're I don't want to say they're necessarily fixing it, like, because watch Final Fantasy 17 will be about a 12-year-old wizard or something. But
I think they're adjusting to the modern audience, though. That's more global. And would like to see a more aged protagonist that's more relatable.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
You guys may know the answer to this question more than I do.
Sure.
I've heard that a lot of the reason for this is that Japan has a very, like, youth, like, I don't want to say fetish isn't the right word because that has connotations, but like they are obsessed with youth or youthfulness. Yeah. And that's why so many main characters in these things are kids. Is that the case as far as you know, or? I
don't know how true this is, but what I've heard was, like, high school is like the golden years, right?
Yeah.
We hear that trope, like, in the West, or at least the US, right? That once you kind of, your peak is like high school for some people who don't go on to like college or, you know, make other big accomplishments later in life. But I think in Japan, that's usually seen as the period, right, where they still have kind of freedom before going into some sort of corporate job that is like slave labor almost. Right. And everything's tied to their colleagues and that schedule rather than having more free time than they did when they were in school.
Yeah.
So it's more of that nostalgic kind of rose tinted glasses, I think, look.
It's a romancing, like, it's like romanticizing that era, even though like if you look at like high school life in Japan, it is very like test heavy and they're struggling to get
cram
into,
school and all that.
Cram schools, like basically like, are you going to end up in the best college and things like that?
But not everyone did that path.
No, not everybody.
We're just like the people who wanted to go on to college and stuff did that path, but not everyone did.
Exactly. And so like, cause like college is not mandatory. Even high school is not mandatory in Japan. So you can actually, you know, just go from junior high school to straight into like some sort of job and go from there.
Work for your parents or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw that a lot when I lived there. And so like the thing is that it's such a romanticization of this kind of situation. And it's a little different than here because like here it's very negative. Where like it can be negative in Japan. Oppressive. Yeah.
Whereas I don't think that's necessarily how they thought of high school back then.
It's true.
Whereas our freedom is when we turn 18 and then we could do whatever we want outside our parents' home. That's not, I don't think, the same thing over there.
Yeah, there's a lot more freedoms. I mean, it's hard to say because like that's not always the case in every situation.
This is there's like generalization for sure.
Yeah. And I think it also has to do with like a little bit of like the anime trope that comes into that where like, you know, a lot of the golden aspects of anime like periods is always within the high school period, whether it be a sports anime or a shonen style anime, like they're always within that high school age group. And so
that also, I think, part of it is the audience too, because a lot of people grew up, you know, with those tropes. And so the high school was kind of the ideal time period. And so they want to kind of, you know, remain there, even when they go past that themselves in reality.
Yeah. And they have to know who they're selling this to. Like they're making this anime, they're making this JRPG for this specific group of people who are of this like, you know, 20 and above, let's say average, like, you know, age group. Upwards of like 40, 50s.
To younger people if they want.
Yeah, exactly. So you're hitting that like whole spectrum of like young people can find some sort of like common ground with those characters because of their age that they're in. And then you have like the older group that is going to be like, oh, like I love this because it reminds me, it's nostalgic to that era of my life where things were different.
I'm being a kid again.
Exactly.
Yeah. When I had this idealized of what high school is.
So they have this. So it sounds to me, looping back in with the dead parents thing. That sounds really depressing. Sorry, but the super young heroes thing. So they are kind of reminiscing about this perception that they had of greater freedom, opportunity, etc. when they were kids. But I also think it's interesting that like a lot of anime even will have if the kids' parents aren't dead, they're somehow living alone in an apartment in Tokyo and they're like 16 years old.
Uncommon.
It's not uncommon there.
I mean, I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying that's like that they are greater.
That is a trope.
Like they are more by increasing their perceived freedom because the parents aren't involved. And then as far as JRPGs goes, that's not as much the case except in the games like Persona. The Persona series, you have parents, but you're not living with them. But if your parents are dead and you're going on an adventure, you have this youth plus freedom, which is not the case probably for most people, even if they romanticize it that way. And then like Emily says, you know, maybe developers over there are starting to appreciate the broader Western audience a little bit more, and maybe they will start creating characters.
Also, they're exposed to that
older.
Media too.
Right. They watch.
So I think
Hollywood
there's influencing on both sides.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe this one will not be a thing forever. you know, like I said, Final Fantasy 16 was a pretty big step for that series.
Look at Daybreak. We got an old man as our protag.
Yeah, he's
Gramps.
24.
Gramps.
practically
As Aaron would call him, Gramps.
Yeah, just so old. Auron, I think when I realized Auron from Final Fantasy X was 33 or whatever,
That makes me feel awful.
I just disintegrated into dust. Like he looks so old. I think a lot of it maybe is the alcohol. Maybe he drank a lot, but
Yeah, if you smoke and
don't
excessively
take care of
drink,
yourself.
it
he
does
also
wear on the
carries
body.
that giant thing of alcohol that
He's
just
got it with him all the
chugs
time.
from. And I think like a lot of, if you look at a lot of shonen or just JRPGs, they're always in a world where like it's just there's so much bad happening, or just like constant like a constant battle for everything. And it kind of goes back to like the old, you know, if you look back at like the history of our world, you know, people were thought as adults or an old as they got into like that whole like maybe in their 20s, and like at that point they were considered old because they've gone through everything. Like they did a lot of things up front in the youth. And so I think they kind of want to pull that mentality of like, especially in, I mean, I don't know why Trails does it. Trails, that's like a whole, you know, it's not like it's not a fantastical world in the sense of like where you're fighting for your life constantly.
Right.
But it is definitely, that could be part of the trope in itself.
Yeah, but I think the small town and going on a big adventure,
Yeah.
you see that in a lot of literature. Look at Lord of the Rings. You start out, you know, in Hobbiton, right?
Yeah.
And then you go on to where it's nice and safe and peaceful at the moment, but everything else outside that's kind of scary, and you want to protect your home. So I think that's also a common trope we see in a lot of JRPGs.
Is that is that the picaresque novel where it's like childhood to adulthood, like going on an adventure, having a growing experience?
It's coming
through
of
that?
age.
Yeah.
I think coming of age is huge, especially in fantasy novels.
Yeah. I mean, if you
In the
look at like,
West.
yeah, like if you look at The Hobbit, like, you know, what you were saying, it's like, it's somebody who is afraid to like, doesn't want to leave the comfort of their home.
Their comfort zone.
Yeah. Like this is what they know. This is what they love.
They want it, but also they want to preserve it, and they have to leave in order to preserve
Yeah.
that.
And there's nothing more like comfort aggressive person like a hobbit. And so like putting, you know, that was the whole concept of that, is like pulling somebody who is like a hobbit and doesn't want to deal with anything. They don't want to be bothered by anything specifically, to go out and actually go on an adventure and deal with a lot of hardships is like the growth. And, you know, coming back from that and seeing how that relates to the Lord of the Rings in general. So that's off topic though. Don't get me started on Lord of the Rings. I'll turn into Branden.
Yeah, we'll have to do another after show clip.
We can do
Lord of the Rings rant.
Yeah, we can do a Lord of the Rings rant at some point. I'm sure there's plenty of people in our audience that would appreciate that.
Venn diagram. I think
yeah.
that's
It's probably
common one.
a pretty big overlap.
By rant,
More
I
than
mean
Lost.
like just
Sorry.
a good rant.
Yeah, just like going off on about how much you love. Yeah, no, that's
how
fair.
much I love it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, I don't know, anything else you want to talk about dead parents or
I think we covered it.
young protagonists?
Yeah, it's.
How about the chosen one trope?
The chosen one is a good
Another
one.
one that's very similar to that.
Yeah. That's super popular. And I mean, like if you look at the Dragon Quest series and things like that, and a lot of like, especially like very fantasy heavy JRPGs
Yes.
that are like,
And I wonder if that was ever inspired in parts from Western, like,
Probably.
you know, literature, or I guess in Japanese kind of historical literature, they probably have chosen ones as well.
yeah.
I feel like most societies, they have some sort of warrior that they romanticize as the chosen one. And that's why they're able to rise up so as high as they did.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think most folk
But-
tales of old across all civilizations were, you know, they need someone to look to as like a role model or as
Also
like a
explain
guiding.
why
Yeah.
they not necessarily fit that, right? Because they weren't the chosen one. So it's okay that you didn't make
Yeah.
all these advances or things yourself.
Yeah.
But you could idolize someone who did.
Yeah. And like, I think like, I'm trying to think of like how they can, there's so many good, I think Persona does it well where they're not really, I mean, I guess they are the chosen one because they're chosen to have this power. And I think that's kind of almost integral to like the plot of a lot of these things. I mean,
It is.
because you kind of have to have a reason why this person needs to save something or do something.
Why they go out and fight God. That specific person.
Persona's an interesting Persona's an interesting example of that trope. Because they are literally the chosen one. They're chosen by Igor or whatever, God.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the god from Shin Megami Tensei that is like it's the blue butterfly. Whatever his name is. It's like an angel-y type name.
Yeah.
But that god is involved in choosing. But the funny thing about Persona is that their chosen one status doesn't really seem to play into it until the very end when things get super weird. And like all the Persona games, it's like you're dealing with shadows and you're fighting weird monsters or whatever. But like the story is typically like, hey, this person's doing this bad thing over here, or this person, we're trying to solve this murder case or whatever. And it's not until the end that it all kind of like is revealed that there's like he's the chosen one. And, part of that is complicated further by the fact that it also has the silent protagonist trope. So like all of this stuff that you would feel like he would just be like, well, let me explain to my friends the weird stuff that's going on. And he just can't because he doesn't have a voice. Further kind of feeds into some of my frustrations with those games. But I don't know. The chosen one thing is it's fine. It's another one of those kind of lazy. Sorry, everybody. It's kind of
crutch,
like a lazy crutch.
Yeah.
I very much like the. Oh, do I want to be controversial?
Do it.
I really like. So I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy. I've watched all the most of the Star Wars movies.
Do it.
But I really liked The Last Jedi, and I know half of you are getting out your pitchforks. I really liked The Last Jedi because it was the first Star Wars movie that I was like, okay, this is an interesting story with interesting characters now, and not just like good versus evil, kind of very standard.
Or nice one-liners.
The idea that like this character, the main character we've been following in the new movies, she's just nobody. She's just a person. She's not important. She just has a sad story like a lot of people have growing up, and she's not special. She's just a person. And she is able to overcome the adversities placed in front of her and able to succeed is like, wow, what a cool story. And then Star Wars fans were like, how could you do this? You've ruined Star Wars because she's not a Skywalker. I don't know what they were upset about. And they kind of retconned all that in the next movie and said, no, actually, she's super important and she's very chosen.
I don't want to get into it now, but remind me to rant about it in our after show.
Okay, yeah, we can continue ranting we can add a Star Wars rant
today.
into the after show.
I do want to talk about it, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we can move that. We can move the actual discussion of that. But anyway, that's kind of my thing. Is like I love the subversion of the chosen one trope that movie did, and I like it when games or stories in general kind of give us the expectation that we're going to have that trope and then subvert it.
Sure.
And I mean,
but I think it shows how hard work could, move the gear towards something more than just your birthright,
Right. The reluctant
or
hero
special ability.
the reluctant hero that overcomes and, succeeds despite all that is so much more interesting to me, at least. Yeah.
And it's also more motivating, right? Like, who cares where their origin's from, or they had some special acknowledgement or something from some higher being.
Yeah, when they start the story with the idea that this person is chosen, I feel like that's a cop out. Like it makes it just it's really usually tied to the silent protagonist. I feel
where
sometimes,
you're just going
though. Fire Emblem Engage, they are all praising her. Oh, you're from the dragon or whatever.
She was
it's true.
She was chosen.
But Engage is not there for this story.
I think you're right. It's kind of the one of the exceptions to the rule, but it is generally tied to a silent protagonist, right? It's off the Dragon Quest series is a big one. They're all the chosen one or whatever.
Like if they're And I feel like in other contexts, they are typically chosen. Like there's always going to be that that group of people or that one person that's going to bring everyone together and they're going to go off and fight the baddie. But like they're more of like situationally chosen. It's kind of like they're you can kind of make the argument that like, okay, like they weren't originally, they would not have been like chosen by like some sort of deity or some sort of like
wrong place, the wrong time.
Yeah, like they're there. They ended up in a situation and they're like they've met people and like the power of friendship had brought them all together and things like that.
Sure.
So like
I'm okay with that than just having some divine intervention.
Yeah.
Because it shows how people create their own meaning, right? Like you create your own meaning within your relationships and within your own life.
You defy fate.
Right. Instead of somebody telling you are going to do this because I am
but
God
your destiny
and
is.
have decided this is for you.
Yeah.
So those have been some, like storyline related tropes. I wanted to mention at least a couple kind of gameplay related tropes. One of them is the forced battle that you have to lose. And the game probably is not telling you up front that you have to lose this battle. And that to me is one of the more, mechanically frustrating games.
Yeah.
It's like, I was saying, I just had that experience last night playing a game and I didn't know it was a forced, that I had to lose this fight. So I'm using all my consumables. These are consumables, right? Like I'm not getting those back. And
precious ones.
Yeah. And then I'm dead. And then the story is like, that was right. You're supposed to, you should have just not done anything and you would have been just as good. So that sort of thing is like, I don't know. I like the way that Trails does it. Trails has a lot of it, unfortunately, but the way they tend to do it is if you are successful in winning the unwinnable fight, you get like bonus AP or whatever that you can, that like increases your rank and stuff. So it's not meaningless to win those fights and then the storyline continues and you lose it or whatever. I don't know. I would almost rather they just have those be a cutscene and I lose.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just be a cutscene. But on a similar line, I really don't like it when they stunt you and then put you in a battle so that you could lose. Like they take away some sort of power or something, and that's why you're not able to beat them. Like that should just been a cutscene. We don't need to experience this and not able to use magic or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's a common thing in D&D, if dungeon masters will force characters into a conflict after taking vital things away from them and then having them lose and having the story continue. I'm just trying to think, where did this come from, right? Because I imagine it came from somewhere.
It's just supposed to show where your character is at a certain point, that they're not strong enough. I think that's supposed to be what they're trying to hit home on. It's
like a narrative thing.
But it doesn't need to be in some sort of battle scene, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when it's using all the mechanics of the game up to this point, because I feel like I should be able to win this. Like if it's, and then all of a sudden the bad guy does 99,999 damage to everybody. And it's like, okay.
Or they have like a HP like sponge or something,
Yeah.
Or reflect everything.
Yeah. But it's always been because like they don't indicate to that at all, like beforehand. Like if they were to kind of give you like I don't know. I can't even think of how they would like indicate to that, or they just
tell
like,
you up front, you're not going to win this fight, but try anyway. That'd be
like a little box. Like try anyway. But then at that point, you're just like, well, I don't want to use up all my consumables. I don't want to use up all my like anything.
I would just do auto battle at that point just to get through it. Like, okay, I'm going to lose anyway. Just die quicker.
Yeah. It's not fun.
No, it's not. But what are some other combat-related ones we don't like? I think we mentioned before the show, equipping some sort of armor or weapon that, like, physically impossible for some character to hold unless they have some ungodly superpower that we don't know about.
That is a trope where you have these, like, 14-year-old looking girls that have like this giant rifles that they're carrying on their like, and you're just like,
or some big like scythe or something that's like twice their person.
And there's like two sides to that where you have like, how are they carrying this first off? And second off, like when it cuts to like I say a cutscene after whatever's, you're fighting or whatever like that, all of a sudden it just disappears.
Where'd it go?
Yep.
Like, is there a pocket dimension that it's like going into? They're throwing it in.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, it's just so funny.
It drives me nuts. Just give the character a weapon that they realistically could hold and keep with them. That's that's okay. Yeah. Like, Cloud they were able to make that work. That freaking Buster Sword, man. He walks around with that thing on his back in the remake trilogy. He makes it work. That's fine. Let's do
Even
that.
If taking it off behind your back and then trying to wield it, it's kind of awkward.
It's a little awkward. It's awkward in reality, but he pulls it off. He
does it very seamless.
He does, and that like adds to his cool factor because it's like, not only is it like he can actually handle this thing.
Yeah. If you want to there's nothing cooler than anyone like in the history of gaming. Like the Buster Sword and Cloud are synonymous with being cool, like being able to like just be a dude that carries that.
Slices a guy down, turn around, just kind of put it away, and just like that's cool. Like you're just like, okay, you're the coolest guy.
My favorite is from like the PS1 version where it just kind of like spins and it goes.
Yeah. He's something else. Yeah. Final Fantasy 15 is the only game that has provided a storyline reason for why the weapons disappear. They I forget exactly what it is, but it's like they're made to do that. They're made to be basically in a pocket dimension sort of thing.
That's how they were designed.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. At least they thought, we want these characters to look cool walking around without their weapons. Let's give them a reason why that's possible. I appreciate that.
It's the little details,
The little details.
A world more believable.
I know. They like to be over the top, though.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Certainly.
Now,
what other tropes we got?
I want to get into.
How about romance tropes?
Romance tropes, please.
Romance. And how they sometimes just go nowhere.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's one for sure.
Yeah, sometimes you have that romance that just like you're like, what?
The budding romance, and they have all these little hints and clues. I think it's just to be fuel for shippers, but they don't have any sort of canon outcome.
Right.
And so shippers just keep
drives
shipping.
Me nuts. Yeah, they really they're fueling that fire of shipperdom, I guess, within the social media sphere, I guess.
As irritating as that is to me and maybe to all of us, it is probably in the best interest of the publishers to make that happen because it keeps the discourse going. People are still talking about
the most famous one.
Yeah, Tifa and
I don't want to bring that up because then all sorts of crazy is going to happen here.
Tifa and Aerith. Tifa is the childhood friend. I just want to point that out. We mentioned the childhood friend earlier.
Yeah, but the Aerith stands.
Did we talk about that?
We haven't talked about that in this context yet.
Let's bring this up as well because it's kind of similar.
It's relevant.
The childhood friend love interest that never ends up with the main character, almost never, and I just feel so bad for the childhood friend. I'm like, you put in the work, you were there the whole time, for good or for bad. You were in the thick of it, and you don't get. He runs off with this dopey lady over here that just showed up out of nowhere.
Dopey.
Love at first sight.
Love at first sight nonsense. And she, I feel so bad for him.
Last sight at this
something in Asian dramas specifically, but other dramas too, of course. It's called the second lead syndrome. And so it's usually designed where the main lead goes for, who's usually a female, will go for the bad guy, right? And everyone hates him, but the second lead is the better guy that she should have been paired with. And everyone's like, why don't you go with them? Or maybe they're the childhood friend or something like that. They never do. And usually this is designed so that the audience member likes the second lead, and that's for them in their own kind of weird shipping kind of trope. Whereas the main pair, they could be together and have their own kind of thing and grow together. So that's usually how it is, at least in the drama world. And I think that's been translated a bit in video games too, to some extent. But
it's weird because
friend trope.
Like in anime itself, the whole child friend trope is generally the one that usually ends up being together, like the pair.
That's
a lot of the times.
Half and half.
Like a lot of the time.
Like every show I've ever seen is like I'm always shocked when it's
unless it's like a depressing show. Like unless it's like one of those like unless it's like one of those like really depressing.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of romance ones, unless it's like a like a comedy romance, they usually end up with the new person, not the childhood friend.
So, I mean, I haven't seen every show, obviously, but like I feel like most of them that I see are just like this. It's like go with the new girl. It's like why? Come on, this other girl's so nice, and she could be
because I think they equate the childhood friend to like sibling status.
Sure, yeah,
that's never stopped them either.
Right,
it's never has, but still,
that's another
sibling.
Trope.
That's a whole other trope that we.
That's another trope. That's another trope
there.
within the love within the love subplot situation,
especially in Trails. I don't want to pick on Trails all day, but they
siblings.
They do the step sibling things.
But that's very common in Japan too.
Step siblings are adopted siblings. I know that's like a common anime trope and fiction trope.
That
makes that somewhat acceptable.
Unquote. I mean, it's an acceptable taboo, right? Like it is a taboo. That's why it's like but it's like one of the acceptable taboos. Whereas in the West, we're like
taboo romance.
Yeah, in the West, we're like,
that's true.
It's like you're my second cousin. Stay away from me, right? Like,
look at Clueless. They went for it.
I haven't seen Clueless.
But there are few like mainstream movies or shows that, from a Western perspective, that go into that, unless like it's what's
that one
British
with
drama.
the stepsister seducing the stepbrother? Famous American movie.
Which one?
I can't think of it.
I can't.
I keep wanting to say The Graduate, but that's not a step. That's like
that's not.
No, that's an older.
Anyway, not important, but the childhood friend / what was the thing we said before? Childhood friend or the romances that don't go anywhere.
No canon romance.
No canon romance.
Teal for shipping.
Yeah. And then there's always like the
age gap is another one.
The most uncomfortable one being like you're too young for this situation. And I think Trails is also very guilty of that. We don't want to pick on Trails all day, but
certainly they are.
Well, they have a prolific series, so they got to encounter like all these that we're
they all the tropes.
Yeah,
there's so many games. There's so many games in the series that no matter what, you're going to get one of them. Yeah,
but they do. The funny thing is, like, they hit the tropes, but then they also subvert them. So like you got the dead parents thing. Like Estelle loses her mom before the first game starts. Lloyd loses both his parents, right? And his brother.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have Reen that has like his parents are both alive. His sister, he's got like a whole family situation. So it's like you get to see the dynamic of that family. So with Trails, you do see the tropes, but you also see them subvert them in interesting ways.
It's true.
That's one of the things I appreciate about Trails. It's something nice about Trails so that it's like I'm not just picking on Trails.
We're not just being super biased and picking on our favorites here.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think the younger aspect, age gap is it's a scary line, and I think that comes from the anime side of things a lot, where you're really
questioning grooming.
Yeah, like it's a very I don't know.
You get neckbeards in the comments saying, well, the age of consent in Japan is, and they're always wrong. That's the thing I don't understand is you think one of them would accidentally be right one time, but they're wrong every time. I don't get it.
This also is when you have the very young looking females, but they're like 1,000 years old. And that's why it's okay.
I learned, tell me if this is offensive. Tell me if this is offensive. I learned that's called lollyhag. Have you heard that term?
I've not heard that term, but
I've heard that.
Yeah. It sounds like it could be offensive, but that's the very young looking character that's thousands of years old.
It's offensive in all the other ways of them just looking like they're 7 or 8 years old, which is, well,
we have that in Trails too to keep up.
We do. We hit them all.
Yeah, they hit all the tropes, and I think that's like, they hit a lot of the anime tropes that come in.
They do.
Which, for the good and the bad. And so I think from like a love subplot to like, the whole love area of tropes, they can, I'll take them and I leave them depending on what it is. I don't mind some of the things, but
Yeah.
I think it does create an interest for conversation because you know everyone has their own opinions about the matter, and so as I think Branden alluded to, you keep talking about the franchise for decades down the line after the game came out.
Your mind. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And that's how you keep making merch and you keep making stuff profit from the game.
Yeah. Exactly. So the shipping aspect, I think, is like perfectly reasonable from a marketing / like.
Yeah. A little bit annoying. I like canon romances personally, but
I do love canon.
Just because I like story, and you take the canon romance out of the story and you're like saying, well, there's a story here, but this part of it's not that important. We're not going to make it part of the story.
Or we're going to be loosey-goosey about it. You can interpret how you want.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So like the tropes are real. There are so many tropes.
I do.
We only scratched the surface, I feel like.
There are a lot more. We would love to hear in the comments.
Yeah.
Let us know the trope or tropes in JRPGs that you are eager to say goodbye to in this new year. Hoping that developers stop relying on them so much. We were talking a bit before the show. I think this was before the show. I don't know. I'm all mixed up here, but we were talking about how, the tropes came from somewhere, right? Like at one point, all of these tropes that we've seen a million times were new. Like it was a new idea. Sometimes even the tropes predate games, right? They were part of literature or movies or whatever. Yeah. So, and video games have definitely, I'm sure, created their own kind of unique tropes in entertainment. So my hope is that writers and developers of games will start to rely less on the existing tropes and either put an interesting spin on a trope or create a new thing that will one day become a trope and will be hated by future generations. That's my greatest wish.
There'll be 3 people like us in
doing
20
a podcast
years.
Or whatever it's called, like
ranting about stuff.
Neural cast or whatever it is in the future. Where it just beams directly into your head.
Straight into your,
yeah. Anyway, do we want to talk about, we want to do some pickups?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
I think we have some things to share.
Yes, some things to pick up. Let's show
them. I know,
you guys have some exciting things to share.
Branden and I went on an adventure.
We went on an adventure. It was so cold.
It was freezing.
It was so cold.
It was,
I'm exploring the possibility of turning it into its own like bonus video. I don't know. We'll have to see if we got enough footage of everything. But
maybe little clips here and there would be nice.
Yeah, I'll put some clips in here so you can get an idea of what we were up to. I'm putting that here now. If I somehow don't do that, you
just cut that out.
You all can tell that I'm asleep at the wheel, at the editing wheel. No, but yeah, we hit a bunch of stores, including one brand new one that just opened a few weeks before. And we had gone out like maybe 3 weeks before that store opened. And when we were looking at the map, we're like, "What's this store? How did we miss that last time?" Turns out it was because it was brand new. So I got a handful of things. I picked up, what is wrong with me? Shining Resonance Refrain, the Draconic Launch Edition. This is the
I got that one too.
Yeah, this is the steel. So I already had this game. This is why I'm like, what's wrong with me? This is the steel case, right? So it's not a steel book. It just the game comes in this steel sleeve thing.
It's neat.
It is neat. It is neat. And you know what? Dallah and I started playing it just for giggles, just to see. And I was
there are no Dragon Girls, right?
Okay, so yes. One correction we need to make is we had made a comment in a previous episode about how that game was about girls that turn into dragons. We were decidedly incorrect about that. There is a boy.
Yes.
There is a boy that turns into a dragon. The girls, it seems they do not. I'm not very far into the game. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's nonsense that they don't. But anyway, so correction there. But it's actually not bad. I don't know. I feel like it wasn't bad. I was like,
I mean, honestly,
it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's definitely like, B level.
Yeah, it's a B level game for sure.
It's like a B tier game.
At least it's on C.
Yeah. Honestly, we played it and it was fine. It was good. Yeah. It wasn't bad.
I could see myself going back to that and actually playing through it. Anyway, so I also picked up Yakuza Like a Dragon, the Steelbook, because they had the Steelbook and I wanted it.
I have that one too.
Cool.
We're being twinsies here.
Yeah, twinsies. This is the PS4 version. I am going to keep my eye out for a disc-only PS5 version because I'd rather have it on PS5. But the Steelbook was a good price. Didn't want to pass it up. And then
Do you
what else?
like the images on the Yakuza games? Like the character designs?
Not
Like I
particularly.
do feel like they're a little bit corny. I have 2 Steelbooks.
Yeah,
Well,
not
Yakuza is
particularly.
corny.
It's corny. Yeah, like I'm not like.
But I think we're too much in the anime kind of design aesthetics.
I'm very anime pilled, so
we're weebs.
Central.
So.
Weeb Central. So, I also picked up this game called Black Mirror. I don't know anything about it. I knew nothing. I didn't know it existed before I found it. And it looks like kind of an adventure game, like a dark gothic kind of deal. Apparently it's based on an old gothic horror adventure series, but I'm not familiar with that either. Okay. But it was cheap, and I thought, why not?
Nice.
This next one, I've got 2 left. This next one, Dallah graciously conceded to me because I think he found it, and I was like, "It's all yours." And he's like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "I do, but like you found it first. If you want it, it's all yours." That's totally fine.
I saw it in his eyes. Like he really.
That's the problem with game hunting together, right?
I know. Yeah.
Battle sometimes.
But I made sure to get it on video. I was like, everybody saw this. That I offered it.
Yeah.
Repeatedly to him, and he turned it down. No, I did. I really did. I was being sincere. I was being so sincere. But it's Lufia Curse of the Sinistrals, which is the DS action RPG remake of Lufia 2.
Lufia 2, yeah.
Which is really interesting to me because Lufia 2 is, I think, the best story out of the series, and they kind of did it up interestingly. I saw some footage online. Finally, picked up the Grandstrom Saga on PlayStation. This is the kind of long-lost final quintet game. Terranigma, Illusion of Gaia, Soul Blazer, ActRaiser, etc. It's not technically literally a quintet game. I think they were broken up by them, but a lot of the people from Quintet worked on it. So it's kind of considered the honorary.
It's not considered a good game.
It's not considered good, but it is considered the Lost Quintet sort of experience.
It's like the last thing they did.
It was not. I want to say
that's good. That's good.
It was like $30, I think.
It was 30, and that was like
cheap
market.
for a PS1.
For a PS1 game, that
games
is
are becoming more
cheap.
difficult to find. I hear,
especially if it's like a PS1 game, like in that kind of aesthetic and look. So and it's one that you don't normally see out in the wild.
Probably a lot of copies in circulation. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I never see it in the wild, so we came across that, and I was like, oh, okay. It's another one. I was like, I made a choice. I picked up the other thing that I'll show shortly, and he grabbed that one. But I'll go with mine. So I started off with grabbing Hydlide.
Hydlide.
the notorious NES game. Just look it up online. You'll find, Angry Video Game Nerd. You'll find all sorts of
famous episode on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have done videos on this. It is. I realized I didn't have it, so and it was for a good price, so I just grabbed it. They
had 2 copies. I almost grabbed that one as well, but I was not positive that I didn't have it, so I was like, I'm not going to take the risk. So I don't have it, so I'm going to need to pick that up next time we go out.
Yeah, next time.
I'm sure it'll still be there.
So wear your little apps handy to know what your
I have the app, but I haven't kept it updated. That's my problem. I slacked off on that. So
yeah. And to go with my theme of like not so good game, people generally don't like them, is Star Ocean, Integrity and Faithlessness. I think Faithlessness.
That's correct,
yes. Which I've never played it, and I never picked it up.
Which number is
because
that?
5.
This is like 5. Yeah. So it's not known to be very good. It's notoriously supposed to be one of the worst ones, but I figure I should try it for myself.
Yeah, it's got the character with the weird booby sweater.
Oh yeah, the booby sweater.
Well, it's like these weird cutout things that are.
It's not super tasteful.
It's not tasteful. It's not tasteful.
I see.
No.
I see. Well, there's a sci-fi element, and I feel like There's not too many JRPGs with a sci-fi element.
Yeah.
With like aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has that at least.
There's that. My next on my list is a classic Sega Genesis game.
Oh my gosh.
That Bubsy.
Oh.
Bubsy.
In its original case.
In the box.
With the
Yeah,
manual,
in-box.
like box and everything like that. So the reason I got this, it was pretty cheap. For this one. I think it was like $20 in box, which is not bad. And I picked this up because I do have the game. But I used to have the box for, I don't know what happened to it when I was, growing up, but I used to play it all the time with my sister and brother. And so like just a lot of fond memories of dying a lot, which I think Branden and I also realize how much you die in that game.
Got to experience. It's a hard game. It's a very hard game.
We played that game. I think we did some recording of it too.
Oh, I captured the footage. It's
it was brutal. I would just like run and then just like straight up just die like in every situation because you just don't see what you're about to hit.
If you go too fast and you hit the ground going too fast, you die.
Yeah,
and it's like that is realistic, but also that's what I'm paying for. I'm not paying for
there
realism.
was this one level that we just kept hitting the water. We just kept hitting the water, just like straight into the water, and it was so it's fun. It's weird.
I didn't realize he was a bobcat.
Yeah.
Yep, he's a bobcat, and he has. I just realized that
bobcat.
I was looking at the manual today for some reason, and it has like a nice little like comic
strip. Yeah,
comic strip of it, so you can kind of go through. And apparently, I don't know. I need to look into this, but on the box it says there's like a TV special that was supposed to come out right in the corner there.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving Thanksgiving TV special.
Yeah, so I don't know if there is somewhere out there an unreleased.
It's got to be
like an unreleased
YouTube.
pilot or something of that. So I'm gonna check that out. I forgot to check it out, so I'll probably do it after this to see if it exists or not.
And see.
Now, the last one. While we were so I'll set the stage of what we were doing that day. So like the first place we went to, awesome. They had a game in there. I might as well just show it now so I can talk about it. But I picked up Alundra.
Hollow cover.
Mm-hmm.
I know. So this is one of the working design games I didn't have. And the first place we went to, they had it for, was it 80?
I'm going to say it was 90 or 85.
85, something like that. And it didn't have a manual, and I was like, I don't know. Like I kind of wanted it, but I also didn't want to pay that much for something without a manual. I mean, it doesn't have like no matter what, I'm not going to get it complete in box because it comes with a map. But
there's
that
a map in there.
It's like a paper map that like
the $40 extra that it makes it cost. Yeah, it's not worth that for sure.
Yeah. So in the last place we went to, we were walking around, and then Brandon's like, "Hey, there's a Alundra right there." And I'm like, all right, well, I've said no to it. I think there was like the first store, and then we saw it again later without a manual as well and more expensive. And I was like, okay, I'm still not going to get that. And so the third time it came up, I was like, man, I guess like it's haunting me through the day. I feel like, and it really like I was really contemplating. I'm like, and then this one I think was like around $90 with the manual.
With the manual.
So like it usually goes for like 130, 100 is like around 130 with the manual and everything. And so I was like, you know what? And I remember Branden was like, I'm not pressuring you. Like he was like,
with the camera in his face.
He put the camera in my face to tell me that. He wanted to get it on camera that he wasn't pressuring me, but like the second he turned off that camera, he was just like, "You're gonna get this.
You're gonna get it right."
Yeah, like you have to get but
To
seriously,
his back. You're gonna get
that's not Aiken. You want? I don't know what is.
Well, I said it's like we saw it 2 times, and this is the third time. I was like, rule of threes from a storytelling perspective, you have to get it now because it's the third time. That gives closure to the story. That's how stories work.
Exactly. And I couldn't like. I felt like I was at that point. I was like, you know what? It's the third time. Yes, it's the third time I'm seeing this. There's a theme to today. And I also wanted to get something like I bought a lot of like just not very like good games.
It's pretty.
It is pretty too.
And it's
working
pretty.
Designs game. It's
pretty.
It's one
and
of
it's
the
in
PlayStation
great
Working
condition.
Designs games. Mm-hmm.
Like the case is super clean. The manual is super clean. And the disc
frontal and showing on the shelf.
Like
that's how I would do.
It's
display
so
worthy.
It's a very nice case and everything like that comes with it. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna. I got it. I got it. I did it, and I'm actually might play it now that I finished Daybreak. Cause like,
I'm
in the mood for something small. Like I don't know how long this game is. I don't remember. I don't think it's. I never beat it.
Isn't it available digitally on the PS3?
Maybe on the PS3.
I think it is.
I don't remember.
I think it is.
I don't think I ever. I never owned it, so I never played it. I knew people have it, so I played it, but I've never beaten it. So it's on my. It was always on my list of like I need to play this game fully, like play it through, and so depending on if it's short enough that I can play it probably before Daybreak 2 comes out, I might do a quick playthrough. Yeah.
Dive in.
Yeah, why not?
Very cool.
So yeah, that's it was a fun experience for both Branden and I, and I think we might be going
this video comes to light.
Well, we might be doing another excursion soon.
We were talking about going a different direction.
Follow-up.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll combine them all into one. That should give us plenty of footage then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
Emily, though, now it's your turn.
I don't have as exciting of a haul here. But I guess I will share a couple things. One was a Kickstarter that I funded for this Estelle pin, where she's kind of like coming out of a PSP sort of thing. I can't tell if it's focusing.
Hold it in front of your face because I think it's trying to focus on your face. Yeah, there we go.
Focusing?
There we go.
There it is. It looks so good, though.
It does.
It's really nice. The fan designer, she is, what is her acronym? Alchemist Pins. And she has like a bunch of different storefronts and like Etsy shops where there's a lot of like handheld console pins with various protags from JRPGs mostly. Kind of just sitting inside of the console, which is really cool. But of course, I had to go for the Trails in the Sky Estelle pin. So I definitely recommend it. I think she's based out of the UK, so it came through international post and just arrived.
Nice.
So I was excited for that, and I had to figure out how I want to display all of my video game related pins because I have quite a few, but I still haven't decided on the pin board I want to put that on. And then for games, I just have one game to show off, and it was one that was sent to me by NS America, and that is the Phantom Brave Collector's Edition. And I went with the PS5 version. This is a really nice collector's edition. I think NIS America always makes nice collector's editions. I'm not just saying that because they gave it to me. But there's some nice little acrylic standees if you're into that, and a nice hardbound art book. I'll have a full unboxing on my channel. Probably up by the time this episode airs. So it should be then. And when it comes to playing, I have played up to the demo so far, but I'm looking forward to getting back into it because I think it's a really interesting tactical RPG, and it's interesting. I had never played the original Phantom Brave game, but the sequel here I think is a good entry point for those who are interested in something a little bit fresh when it comes to the tactical RPG genre. And it has these colorful island vibes. Yeah. And I know there's a full-on review on Branden's channel that we should plug. So,
yes. Check that out if you are interested in that game at all. It is a lot of fun. It's like one of those games where I was doing battles that weren't even just to move the story forward. I was like, I just want to go do this side thing, for money or whatever. Doesn't happen for me with tactical games. So the fact that I was enjoying it so much that I was just vibing with the combat is like, okay, cool.
That's great.
Did not expect that. That was not on my 2025 bingo card.
Nice.
So that's good. I also should mention I have the collector's edition that NIS sent me. I have not done my unboxing yet. I'm probably gonna do a short because at this point I kind of missed it was late. I was supposed to get it a week ago and I got lost in
weather.
Weather
delayed.
and other problems. So I just got it last night.
Nice.
So I will be doing an unboxing probably just as a short. So look forward to that if you are interested. And I think that does it for you, Emily, right? That's all your pickups?
Yeah, that's all I was going to share.
Excellent.
Saving the rest for a haul video.
fantastic. A fly just landed on Dallah's head. I liked watching that in real time. Just kind of zoomed around the camera and just boop.
Plop.
So it's great. Love that. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening or watching or whatever it is, however you're consuming this. We really appreciate you. Once again, if you are interested in supporting the show and, joining our Discord and chatting or potentially, checking out the bonus videos, the after shows we do every week, consider becoming a member. We really appreciate you guys. It really helps us out a ton.
Yeah. We usually talk for about an hour, it seems like, every after show. And we always have lots of fun laughs.
Yeah, we aim to have an hour. Sometimes they go longer, but it's just gravy at that point, right? Like
it is.
So please check that out. Once again, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a review on the podcasting apps to help us reach more people, we really appreciate that as well. And I guess until our next episode, goodbye to you all.
Bye-bye.